First of all, I would want to introduce my good friend, Mr. Jasmine Shah, a very accomplished person. I'm just going to, first thing I'm tempted to ask that what is he doing in politics? Because if you look at his CV or the nature of work, he's IIT Madras engineer, then he was in Columbia, he was at MIT, he was at ITC, and he would have, been doing very well with that very fine car and a fine house and a very, a very cushy job. What prompted you, of course, in the course of conversation you will say, but first thing I would want to ask you about what prompted you to get into politics, what has been your experience. But friends, before I start all that conversation, I just want to say one thing about his book. It's a very remarkable book, Delhi Model. You may or may not agree with some of the findings or observations, but he's very strong on facts. I have written several books, and Bhavana is here and she would vouch that, journalists tend to write a lot of, anecdotal account. We don't write in a very substantive manner. His book, when I was reading it, the kind of issues that he has raised, the kind of academic rigor that he has gone through, this is very remarkable. And it tells you, as I said, the outcome, whether the Delhi model is working or not, and how is Delhi model comparable to what we were told, Gujarat model, or if there are such models also exist or not, that we'll get to know. And I would request you, because there are just two of us, he will speak, I'll ask him something, but I want to involve all of you. So after a few opening remarks and few questions, I would request all of you to think of asking a question or making an observation. Because we are meeting friends at a time when Delhi elections are happening. They are at our next door. Many of us may not be, voters here, but in Delhi elections. But Delhi elections are very important because it is going to, tell us the roadmap of the future. We had Lok Sabha election, a certain verdict had come, but after that there were two more elections of Haryana and Maharashtra, and which gave us, people like me, a kind of thing that whether this double engine ki sarkar or that concept of federal government and state government being on same page, is it working, or Delhi is going to show another side of our political thinking? Because Delhi is a very unique state. It is not a state like Bengal or Haryana or Tamil Nadu or any other state. It is a half a state, and where governance is very difficult. And I actually, Jasmine, liked the chapter of yours where you say that democracy is under threat in the context of the kind of what Arun Jaitley also used to say, the tyranny of the unelected. So he has raised some very important points in the book. I would request all of you to consider buying a book and getting his signature or his comments on that. That would be really a real encouragement. So now, as I asked you, what brought you in politics? How were you drawn into politics? And then, of course, we'll know what is Delhi model is all about.
Rasheed, thank you for such kind words on the book. For somebody as senior a political journalist as you and author of so many books, to feel that this has the kind of rigor that I had attempted when I started writing it means a lot. Thanks to all of you for coming on a Saturday evening. Your question was what drew me to politics. I have a few friends also in this audience, and one of them is here, Mr. Sanjeev Rangras, who had seen me when I made this transition from the corporate sector to public service. And I think for me, it was not just politics. The fundamental decision I made 3 years out of IIT Madras, and I had a very cushiony private sector job, was to at least give it a shot at changing the country. I think too many young people live forever in their lives with the cynicism or with armchair criticism that is desh ka kuch nahi ho sakta. And even though I come from a very very ordinary middle class family background, I think so many of us live our lives in bubbles that we don't realize the scale of the divide between the haves and the have-nots And for me, it was actually when I started working and I was working in ITC for the first 3 years, I actually traveled to parts of India that I never imagined. You know, I was in UP, I was in Munger, in Bihar, and many parts of the country that I never visited. And then I was living in Bangalore and I saw, chalo, wahan to dikkat hai hi hai. But even in a city like Bangalore, and I talk about it in the preface of my book, here we are, you know, the epicenter of India's Silicon Valley, you know, competing with the best in the world. But the moment you come out, this electronic city is a complete disaster in governance, you know, in terms of the traffic jams and the mess and the pavements are not there. Like almost nothing seemed to work at that point in time. And probably even now, I would say not much has changed. So for me, it was not the contrast between Bharat and India typically as it's made out. For me, it was a contrast that India has the best and the brightest to compete with, you know, others in the world when it comes to corporate sector. I mean, we know how many Indians are heading international and American companies. But somehow when it comes to governance, we have become used to this idea of living with third world governance. And the fact that our politicians are no better. तो वो मुझे बहुत खटकता था. And for years, sort of that churn happened. And I realized that, you know, fine. And I went through years of cribbing and being an armchair critic. And I realized that life में एक बार तो कुछ करके देखना है. You know, let's just give it a shot. क्या हो सकता है? And I was very clear from the beginning that policy is the answer to much of the mess that India is seeing. You know, either we did not have political will or we did not have the right people who were framing these policies, because these were not rockets. I mean, I'm an engineer and I know that the answer to potholes was devised, centuries back. So why do we still have potholes? Why do we still have broken footpaths? So somebody somewhere is not doing the job they are meant to be. So I started out, and I didn't start out with politics. I thought, let me at least go to the ground and understand issues. So I started working with Janagra, this non-profit, and I think it's one of the finest non-profits working on urban policy and urban governance in India. I also thought should get some education in this regard, and I did my master's in public administration at Columbia. I was a Fulbright fellow. And then I got an opportunity to work with the Abdul Latif Jameel Poverty Action Lab. Professor Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo were also my former bosses. So I worked with them, and it was inspirational to work with all these figures. And around that was the time when Aam Aadmi Party happened. I was in US at that time, and I knew, by that time I'd worked 7-8 years in the development sector. And फिर वो होता है ना कि you become more lalchi. You want change faster, right? And I realized that even being in non-profit and in this kind of public advocacy organization, all you're doing is essentially trying to influence bureaucrats and politicians to take the right decisions. And it was very slow burn. And I realized, and I was very sure that if you can get right people in politics, that is the biggest way in which this country can change. And I never got inspired by the political outfits that were out there. But when AAP happened, and I came back to India in 2013, and somehow when I tell the story of how I met, and I met Mr. Manish Sisodia as a person working on education policies, because he decided in his first budget to double the allocation to education, which no government has done, over 1 year, to double the education budget. So I went and to present ideas, and typically all my experiences in India was that education minister बस 5 मिनट के लिए आएंगे, थोड़ा हवाई बातें करेंगे, and they'll tell the bureaucrats कि अब इनके साथ बात कर लो, figure out the nitty-gritties. That was the first meeting. In that first meeting, Mr. Sisodia, Atishi, the education secretary, finance secretary, they all sat for 3 hours brainstorming each and every idea that we had come as the Poverty Action Lab on what could be done to change Delhi's government schools. And that one meeting was enough for me to know that there is a genuine commitment, there is a genuine will here to change things. And then after that, the journey is, I think, a lot of people already know.
Wonderful. Excellent. The way he was speaking, it reminded me of one anecdote where Dr. Manmohan Singh had shared once, that in the late 1960s, when he was working for World Bank, and then he suddenly decided to come to India and took up a teaching job at Delhi School of Economics, and he was also working for Government of India. So his immediate superior at the World Bank said, "What are you doing? You are leaving, World Bank for this." So Manmohan Singh, he just kept quiet. Then his superior said, "Sometime it is wise to be foolish." And as we say in Manmohan Singh's life, it played. So I won't say that, but the spirit would be something like that. You have made a very strong case for a Delhi model, and how things have been. If I was not a Delhiite or living here, I had gone through the kind of findings that you have, the kind of effort you have made about 5-6 issues that you have raised about about transport, about it's not in that order, but about energy sector, environment, education, health, all those things. It's like I would think that Delhi is like in Finland or any of the Scandinavian countries where things are very good. So is it a case of glass being half full or half empty? I mean, why I'm asking, because we were in 2012-13 period, we were told about Gujarat model, and the Gujarat model played a very big role in what we are today in terms of governance and politics. So you think this is as notional as Delhi model, Gujarat model? These models are produced just to attract. They're very catchy. They are very intoxicating. But in substance, is it the case?
So I'll split my response. You asked two questions as to what was the idea behind defining it, the Delhi model, and talking about it. And I'll come to the Gujarat model because it's normally the one of the chapters which gets most spoken about is the contrast with Gujarat model. But 90% of the book is not to draw political comparisons, and this is also not political with Gujarat model. But why Delhi model? I make the case in this book that for the first time in independent India, here's a government that has prioritized investment into human capital. This entire idea that what should be the role of government, the Delhi government and the Aam Aadmi Party over the last 10 years has consistently invested around 40% of its budget in health and education. No government, I mean, you go to Kothari Commission in 1960s onwards, all commissions, all experts say कि health and education पे spending बढ़ा हुआ है, health and but no government has ever done this, and here's a government that has done this. There are outcomes that are really stark. Some things today Delhi's government schools actually give a run to most of the private school. I mean, leave the top 10, 20, but the infrastructure, the kind of teaching. I mean, we had a batch of children from Delhi government schools who went to France to study French. We have more than 2,000 children who've cleared NEET and IIT JEE examinations from Delhi government school system this year. So the kind of outcomes, and this has happened not because 10-15 school chamka di. We have more than 1,000 schools. We have around 17 lakh children, and there has been a widespread transformation. So education is one, health is another. And what gives us the model, the idea of a model, is that there is a larger ideology, or I would say there's a larger theory at work over here. It's not, for example, let's say there are many good innovations many states have done. Classic example is midday meal scheme that Tamil Nadu government came up with. Fantastic scheme. But can you call it a model? Probably not, right, of education. I am making the case here that the Aam Aadmi Party, and since I have been part of the government, headed the think tank of Delhi government for 6 years, there is this inherent belief that investing in our people is the surest way to grow the nation or to take the nation forward. What will make India developed? As I say, the byline of the book is a bold new roadmap to building a developed India. And what the Delhi model believes in is that invest in human capital, prioritize your spending into human capital. Second, provide quality services to all citizens, rich, middle class, poor. Everybody should get 24/7 and affordable electricity. Everybody should get world-class public transport. If they are willing to, they should get a basic quality of education everywhere. Even mohalla clinics, by the way, mohalla clinics or our healthcare system, a lot of middle-class people are benefiting from it. Majority, and for people who do not know, majority of demand for new mohalla clinics in Delhi is coming from GK and from CR Park because it's practically unaffordable. If you have a small fever, to do tests and get medicines is 1,000 to 2,000 rupees. So Delhi government has created all these benchmarks. At the same time, it has given this idea of creating a social safety net for the vulnerable, the kind of transfers that we do, subsidies and free benefits that we give. That for the first time has given almost, I believe, a shot at dignity to some of the most vulnerable sections. I mean, irrespective of how far India's overall economy has developed, we are the 5th largest economy. We take a lot of pride. But India is also today one of the most unequal countries in the world. I have presented the data of Thomas Piketty and many other economists. India is today more unequal than it was in the British rule. We are, I mean, the amount of wealth concentrated in the top 10, and as a result, the per capita income in India has stagnated for the past 2 decades. And especially when you come to human development indices, in the last 10 years, while India's overall economy has grown, our HDI rank has actually dropped from 130th to 134th. I believe the Delhi model gives alternative. I'm not saying probably it is the best. Probably other states are also doing good. But I believe it gives an answer to how do you grow the economy. It does fairly well on economic indicators while taking care of your people, while looking after their well-being, by looking at their health, education, electricity, water, and etc. I'll give a very short answer to Gujarat model question. Now, the reason why I wanted to draw a comparison with, as you rightly said, Gujarat model has been talked about a lot, and I think the propaganda there has been far ahead of the reality. In the Gujarat model, and for most people, I think many people may already be aware, and by now a lot of economists have punched holes into it. But Gujarat model is an approach where the state, the government, reduces its entire responsibility to chasing GDP growth. Ki economy ko badhao, bade investments lao, and therefore what happens? They give the most, tax cuts. They literally throw away land at 1 rupee per acre. Thousands of crores of loans given at 1% interest rate. And now, where does all this money come from? It comes from the spending that the government ought to do on health and education. Gujarat is one of the least spending states on health and education across India. In terms of, and you would feel that all this economic prosperity will actually come down, average wages would have grown. But the average wages in Gujarat is 270 rupees per day, which is less than the national average of 350 per day. And Gujarat ranks today 19th out of 20 states on average wages. But when you look at health and education indicators, it's terrible. Today, more than, I think it's around 52% of children in Gujarat who do not go beyond class 10th. You have more than 10,000 out of the 30,000 Gujarati government schools that are operating in tin sheds. Pakke buildings bhi nahi hai. On health indices, 40% of Gujarati children are malnourished. It ranks number 2. So what is this development model where you're saying ki nahi, bade it has fantastic roads, I give it to you. Some of the basic infrastructure is great. But when it comes to actually looking after the well-being of your people and Human Development Index, Gujarat ranks 21 out of 28 states. Jammu and Kashmir and Arunachal Pradesh do better on the Human Development Index than Gujarat. And I think that point needed to be underscored. In comparison, Delhi ranks at number 1 on HDI. We've spoken a lot about health and education, but on economic indicators, Delhi's GDP growth is not at par with Gujarat, but it's near where the average Indian GDP growth is. But Delhi has the highest minimum wages across the country. By the way, Gujarat's minimum wages may have increased by around 2,000 in the last 10 years. I draw a comparison in the book over the same time frame between 2014-15 and 2020-23. In this period, Gujarat managed to increase its minimum wages from around 7,000 to 9,000 rupees. Delhi, in the same period, doubled it from 9,000 to 18,000. Today, Delhi offers the highest minimum wages. Delhi has the lowest inflation across the country, and Delhi has one of the lowest unemployment rates. And I think that is what gives it, it's as much of an economic model as it is a model for social change. And that's why I gave the title Delhi model.
Thanks. So, Jasmine, now I would move from book. The book would remain a central thing to, the politics, the practical applied side of it, because many people, as I can see, are not carrying book. I would again encourage them that while leaving, they should buy a book and get it signed by you. The Aam Aadmi Party came with a lot of expectations. It was a real sort of, alternative to some of the traditional political parties. They were functioning, and then suddenly, something changed. And this kind of, though you have addressed, but I want you to respond to that. There is a lot of criticism for people who were who thought that Aam Aadmi Party is a very good alternative, is a party with a difference, though that's a tagline of the BJP actually. But you just your party went on a kind of this thing on freebies, on what we call it as reverie culture, and there is so much of competitive populism, as if you see, we get a feeling as if the votes are being auctioned. एक बाजार पूरा खुला हुआ है, somebody is giving 2100, somebody is giving 2500. So that kind of culture is there. So while we see in many of the Scandinavian countries and in many parts of Europe also that it's all that welfareism is very much part of routine. It is sort of structured. It is not segmented. Here what we are doing at political level, that we are targeting. So women, I mean, in this election also and previous election, Aam Aadmi Party has targeted women voters, and particularly women who are economically not so well off. What do you say to this criticism that you are actually auctioned votes?
So I think it comes out of typically two kinds of thought processes. This kind of criticism and we call it providing a shot at dignity. We call it providing a social safety net for the vulnerable populations. I think the first criticism comes from this kind of a middle class entitlement that looks down upon people who have had so many, the Indian system, think about the government schools. 50% of our children today study in government schools. It used to be 70-80% earlier, progressively. But do we really think that 50% children have the same shot at life as others do? Where these benefits help is to actually give them a shot at dignified living and to overcome some of these challenges which are fundamental and structural in the Indian system. But there is this, I believe, middle class entitlement कि किसी को कुछ नहीं मिलना चाहिए, मैं टैक्स पेयर हूँ, मेरे को ही सब कुछ मिलना चाहिए, right? And we forget that there is a larger society that contributes even to the middle class's prosperity. The people who are working for you, the people, the maid or the driver, उनके भी बच्चों को अच्छा एजुकेशन मिलने का हक होना चाहिए इस देश में. उनके भी बच्चों को, उनके भी families को, we should be able to give them good healthcare. The other argument, which I believe is a sensible criticism of providing a lot of welfare benefits, is what does it do to the rest of the state's budget? And I make the case that, so first of all, the way Aam Aadmi Party views it is that when targeted well, these welfares and these transfers can mean a lot in the lives of the poor, and especially women. I'm glad you pointed out women, because the condition of women in Indian society, and this is actually beyond just the lower strata, even in the middle and the higher classes, Indian women are one of the most disempowered. And the World Economic Forum has this gender gap index where India ranks at 130 out of 150 countries. I'm not talking about some funny international organization. I'm talking about the World Economic Forum. There are many other such global groups that show. And I'll give you the example of Delhi. In Delhi, the participation of women in the labor workforce, is only 11%, which is lesser than Saudi Arabia. This is how economically disempowered or dependent our women are. So clearly there are a lot of barriers that as a society we have imposed on the women. And for long time, महिला सशक्तिकरण सब बात करते हैं, but जब पैसा खर्च करने की बात आती है, then people back out. And I remember when we introduced the free bus travel for women, all the political parties and this Noida media shot it down, saying अरे ये तो बर्बाद कर देंगे and this is nothing. Today, this scheme has been replicated by so many states. I must tell you that there are 100 cities in Europe that have made public transport completely free. And the role public transport plays, the role of mobility and empowerment is huge. There's a study that researchers from Ashoka and Shivnadar University did on Delhi's pink ticket scheme, as we call it. And they say that for the women in the marginalized group, it has increased their chances of paid employment by 25%. Just this one scheme. Because now there's no hesitation to go farther distance to find a job that pays well. So now the way we look at it is welfares are good However, there are two caveats, and I think this is where other political parties are very different from the way AAP thinks about it. First, we do not make these so-called freebies or welfare subsidies at the cost of the fundamental role of the government. I mentioned earlier, we are the only government that spends 40% of our budget in health and education. Whoever criticizes AAP on freebies never talks कि भाई आप 40% क्यों खर्च करते हो health and education में? And by the way, all the freebies put together, I mean, we've not implemented the Mahila Samman Yojana, but all the welfare and the subsidy schemes of Delhi government put together occupy 7% of our budget. 7. The remaining 93% is spent on health, education, and fundamental basic infrastructure. We have spent on providing quality infrastructure more than most other governments across the country. I'll give one or two examples. Even in Delhi, in 2015, when AAP came to power, half of the unauthorized colonies, by the way, unauthorized, there's a 1/3 of Delhi's population that lives in unauthorized colonies. And they were almost forgotten, and government wouldn't invest in them. Half of the people in unauthorized colonies did not have piped water supply. 10% only had sewer supply. In the last 10 years, we have laid more than 10,000 kilometers of water pipelines. Today, the number of households with piped water supply has reached 99.6% for the first time in Delhi. The number of households connected with a sewer line has reached around 70%. It's we have, I think, laid 4,500 kilometers of water. On electricity, Delhi used to have 4 and 6 hours. By the way, since we are in Gurgaon, people know the quality of electricity supply in Gurgaon. How many of the societies here operate without a DG backup? Hardly any. In fact, I know there are many societies in Noida and Gurgaon that actually operate on 24 hours DG supply. Kyun? Kyunki power hi nahi aata. We invested in the distribution infrastructure. Yes, so we have invested in health and education. We have invested in basic infrastructure. Plus, we have managed to increase our government budget by an unprecedented 2.5 times. We were at 30,000 crores in 2015. By the way, before that, in the last term of Sheila Dikshit ji, Delhi's budget grew by 1,000 crores per year. 25,000 crore था, 30,000 crore हुआ. हमारे term में, in the last 10 years, it's risen from 30,000 crores to 75,000 crores, an increase of around 5,000 crores per year. ये कैसे हुआ? We plugged a lot of leakages in the tax collection system, and we also cut down on wasteful expenditure. The reason why we are able to carve out the fiscal space for all this, whoever says that सरकार के पास पैसा नहीं है, वो सबसे बड़ा झूठ बोल रहा है. There is so much of wasteful expenditure that goes on, and I talk about some of the examples. So there was a political will, and then we managed to find a way. And by the way, after doing all this, we have reduced Delhi's debt to GDP ratio. That's the way to look at how much indebted any state is. Delhi was at 7% in terms of debt to GDP ratio. Today we are at 4%. We have the lowest debt to GDP ratio for any state in India. So फिर problem क्यों होनी चाहिए? When you're able to do all this, that's the way I put it.
One has to give it to Jasmine. You are very convincing. But tell me, if I am a Delhi voter, you see, why would I vote for a political party, whose chief minister or minister, if they call a meeting, you mentioned that, on environmental issues, there were 12 meetings, only one time the secretary turned up or showed up. If that is a case that, whatever you are promising, the Lieutenant Governor is already, or many departments, there was ads also that they will not be able to implement it, or they're not going to implement it. And there is a law, there is a Delhi Services Act that was passed by Parliament of India. So if I know that you are not going to fulfill the kind of promises because of the very nature of Delhi government and the role of Lieutenant Governor, why would I vote for you?
Very good question. From the first, I would say 30 days or 45 days since Arvind Kejriwal ji became the chief minister in 2015, the interference of the LG in the central government immediately began. The ACB was snatched away. The services, the Delhi Services Act is only the latest avatar of taking the control of bureaucracy. It's going on since 2015, and despite all of these obstacles, all this change has happened. I think point of me writing this book is also that, eventually it's the political will that matters. अगर सरकार को करना है, चलो ठीक है, कुछ काम, if you, like I'll give a classic example. हमें दिल्ली में 10 साल लगे 550 मोहल्ला क्लिनिक बनाने में. 550 मोहल्ला clinics today serve around 2 crore patients. They give free treatment, free medicines and free tests to more than 2 crore patients every year. In Punjab, it took us 2 years to make 850 clinics. लेकिन फिर भी क्योंकि पॉलिटिकल विल था, आप मुझे बता दीजिए वहां पे प्राइमरी हेल्थ केयर के नाम पे गुजरात में क्या है, मध्य प्रदेश में क्या है. द आइडियोलॉजी और द विल इटसेल्फ इज नॉट देयर टू इन्वेस्ट इन थिंग्स दैट मैटर.
They have mandate.
So, no, so of course, I mean, absolutely, they have won. They undoubtedly they have won the elections, and probably the people there are voting for something else, or maybe there are not enough options. But the point I make here is that all this progress that has happened in Delhi in the past decade is despite these obstacles. क्यों? क्योंकि there was a government with the political will to do what ought to have been done, I believe, decades back. And maybe, you know, this progress would have happened in lesser time, but at least 10 साल में भी जो हुआ है, I believe very few state governments have managed to do even that, even full state governments. ये तो आदि, I say that we started out with a 50 or a half state government, and today we are a quarter state government because powers have been taken away. But regardless all this, and I mean the data and the facts with which I've tried to put this narrative together, hopefully does the justice of saying that political will के कारण finally फिर भी इतने सारे काम हुए.
Again, I would repeat that question. If I'm a Delhi voter, why would I vote for a party whose chief minister is already, you know, barred in legal terms from not to do certain things?
No, so it is I think a lot of these. Okay, you can finish. I'll answer.
Yeah. So, and of course, you know, he came India against corruption and all that movement that when you had joined this, it was against, so to say, a personality cult. Now, the kind of things that whether the radio spots or the kind of conversation, it is same like Modi ki guarantee, you know, so it's a Kejriwal ki guarantee. So it's a personality cult, as if Mr. Kejriwal is one person who has a magic wand and he comes and he can do, you know, he can turn around. So that's so much focus on a personality. And second part is, of course, a personality who may face, you know, legal hurdles. So, you know, voter, particularly voter in Delhi, is also very well aware. As you're talking about GDP and all the things, that politically also, because of proximity to perhaps Noida and TV studios. So the voter in Delhi is very well aware. So don't you have this kind of apprehension that while, of course, vote percentage and all, you are still going by popular surveys and all, you're still ahead. But then voters would weigh in this factor that Mr. Kejriwal may not be able to work. We have sympathy for him, but he's, you know, in legal terms, he's not allowed to. And of course, the Delhi government is not, I mean, Delhi government means, I mean, the federal government, national government is not going to make them, and there's going to be lieutenant governor. Then why sort of have this constant 5 years of confrontation? Let's find an easy way out. Hum bhi khush, wo bhi khush.
No, find an easy way out to what end, right? To what? So I'll come straight to your answer, question. The challenges or the so-called legal hurdles have been completely, I would say there is a narrative being painted that ab wo kuch nahi kar sakte hain, which is, by the way, completely false. We have, and since I participate in many TV debates, I try and tell this. So far, you know, Delhi is one of the states where every cabinet decision that the Delhi CM signs on, the file has to go to the LG. He does not have all the powers. Maybe he can just mark a comment. He may not veto it. But the file has to go to LG. Now, what did the Supreme Court say in its bail order? It says that the CM, as CM, Arvind Kejriwal ji can only sign those files that go to the LG. तो फिर क्या बदला? 10 साल से वही चल रहा था. They have said that हाँ आप CM दफ्तर नहीं जा सकते. But the CM house, the CM residence itself is a CM office. There are meetings, and that's how he was functioning even after he came back. So, in terms of the real challenge, there is nothing really changed. I mean, the AAP government in Delhi has delivered in the last 10 years, while all these obstacles have been going on. Now, I see the point when you say that, nahi, lekin itna confrontation hota hai, jhagda hota hai. And Arvind Kejriwal ji says many times कि मैं अपने बच्चों के लिए नहीं झगड़ रहा हूँ. I'm not asking for salaries or jobs for my children. I am fighting. I'll give you an example. In 2016, after our first 100 mohalla clinics were built, and people saw and BJP saw that they're extremely popular. You know, there are people who love it. They stopped the file for mohalla clinics for 3 months. We wanted to expand it to further. only when 40 of our MLAs did a dharna in front of LG House. वो सड़क पे बैठे रहे 6 घंटे के लिए. The next day he cleared the file. So every time now, if the files get cleared, this is the elected government of Delhi, right? People have elected them because they want them to address issues in health, education, and all these. And if the LG or the central government is not clearing legitimate decisions, then in a democracy, you have the right to put pressure. But I would say, and I've been inside the government, 90% of the work happens without confrontation, right? Obviously, the media amplifies confrontation because TRP वहीं से मिलती है. But reality है कि 24,000 सरकारी क्लासरूम थे सरकारी स्कूल के in 2015. We have added 22,000 new classrooms in the last 10 years. The kind of infrastructure we built in health, the kind of work that's happened in, I talked about water supply, electricity, all of that has happened. But jahan legitimate government ke decisions roke gaye, we have protested, and in most cases that protests have resulted in better outcomes.
Jasmine has mentioned one instance which would amuse you in the book. He's mentioned the LG cleared a file. There was a group of teachers was to go to Finland on training. But LG, there was a lot of sort of files kept moving back and forth. And finally, when LG cleared it, by that time that visa had expired.
No, I'll tell you, this is a very funny instance. So Delhi government takes a lot of pride. By the way, we are the only school system that sends our sarkari school ke teachers and principals abroad for training. Why? Not because India mein training achhi nahi milti. And by the way, a lot of them go to good institutions in India. But because we want them to believe that they are no less than the best in the world. We send them to Finland, we send them to Cambridge, University of Cambridge, we send them to Singapore. And the transformation in those 10 days ki trip hoti hai is remarkable. They come back with really bubbling with fresh ideas. ये 5 साल 6 साल से चल रहा है. Here comes the current LG of Delhi, VK Saxena, who believes that he knows everything about teacher training that's there to know. And he writes on file कि नहीं teachers को Finland क्यों भेजना चाहिए, आप दिल्ली में भेजो. And the CM of Delhi, I mean that time Arvind ji in the assembly, he said ये तो बेगानी शादी में अब्दुल्ला दीवाना जैसा हो गया. मैं CM हूँ, मेरा बजट है, मेरे टीचर है, मैं डिसाइड करूंगा टीचर को कहाँ भेजना है. And still the LG did not agree. फिर सबने मार्च किया, हमारा old technique. So we put pressure. We put pressure. Finally the LG cleared it, but और सवाल लगा दिए. तो ये 3-4 बार हुआ. Finally when the date for visa was gone, is the LG gave green signal and said कि मैंने अब सब कुछ clear कर दिया. But by that time obviously the matter was dead. So I mean these are the obstacles, but that doesn't mean अब हमने धरना क्यों किया? Because we also wanted to tell people that this is how people, we are. The mandate of as I said, democracy under attack. This is how democracy is being undermined. We take a lot of pride that we are the world's largest democracy. And I said that we have a lot of distance to go from being the world's largest to the world's greatest democracy. We are nowhere near that. And there's a lot that we ought to do. And the best place to start is the national capital. अगर आप national capital में democracy का exemplar नहीं बना सकते, then it tells the rest of the country and the rest of the world that probably we don't have faith in people's vote and who people want their CM to be.
Friends, how many of you think that this Kejriwal government's idea of odd and even numbers of the car vehicles was a good idea? A great idea? Quite a few, but it's like you can see glass is half full or half empty. One criticism one can make about this book
I think a 5 or 10 page chapter on the audio.
Yeah, that's why I'm coming to it. So you have made a very sort of, kind of, I would say, a passionate and a very strong, substantial defense of this scheme, odd even scheme, and you have cited some studies were also conducted. You also, defended or showcased, the kind of how Kejriwal government met with pollution, air pollution, or vehicular pollution. Do you think that you have just, of course, facts are on your side, but you have presented a very rosy picture. Many people may not agree to what we see in Delhi just maybe a couple of months back or earlier, and general sense. What do you say to that criticism?
Yeah, so I'll answer the very quick response on odd even. And odd even, by the way, is an emergency measure, and I make this point again and again. Odd even is not the way of life. When literally your pollution goes off the charts. It's and pollution becomes a health emergency. You know, when we say it's severe plus levels, then the government ought to do whatever it can do. I mean, you shut down schools, you do many of other restrictions, and this idea came from a few other examples. You know, a few other cities in the world had tried it. So we implemented it first time in, I think, January 2016. And since then, in the last 10 years, we've implemented it only 3 times. Why? Because it's very disruptive. You know, like a lot of people's movements get affected. But there are studies now that have been done by University of Chicago, Harvard University, Harvard Kennedy School researchers. And it shows that odd even during the winter period reduces peak pollution by around 12 to 13%. It's not 50%, it's not 90%, but most environmentalists and people who tell on pollution is that agar ek intervention aapki 10-12% bhi pollution ghata sakta hai, it is more than worth it. So it has served its limited purpose when in emergency. Now coming to the larger question on pollution. The first chapter that I started writing in this book was pollution, because I remember I started writing this in the winters of last year, around December 2023. And I have personally worked, you know, as part of the think tank DDC that I used to head. I've worked a lot on pollution matters. Now, I present data here to start. There are 2 or 3 things I think people in Gurgaon also should know. It is not Delhi's pollution. It is North India's pollution. Okay, and we should know this because 42 out of 50 most polluted cities in the world are in India today, and practically all of them are in North India. And उसमें से भी सबसे ज़्यादा Delhi NCR में है. Now, what is this Delhi? So every, you know, pollution is a regional, it's an airshed issue, and Delhi NCR can be thought of one airshed. Now this Delhi National Capital Region is a land mass of 55,000 square kilometers. Delhi का उसमें कितना हिस्सा है? 1,500 square kilometers, 3% land mass. There are other studies, because obviously Delhi is very dense. There are studies, and by the way, these are all studies by IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, like very well, you know, known that these are facts. 30% of all the air that comes, or the pollution in Delhi, 30% comes from pollutants within Delhi. The remaining 70% flows from the larger area. And that is the reason, you know, I say throughout the pollution chapter that unless India and unless at least Delhi NCR has a kind of a common minimum program, a binding action plan on air pollution, agar Delhi डिसाइड कर चुका है कि सारी बसें इलेक्ट्रिक बसें होंगी. बाय द वे, वी वर द फर्स्ट टू अनाउंस दैट ऑल आवर बसेस आर गोइंग टू बी इलेक्ट्रिक बसेस. टुडे 2000 electric buses are running in Delhi, which is the highest in India and the 3rd highest in the world. You know how many electric buses are running in Delhi NCR? Not even one. Okay. In fact, there are many diesel buses that are still running in Delhi NCR. We have shut down all our polluting, all the thermal. We had 2 thermal power plants in 2015. We have shut down all those plants. In Delhi NCR and the larger, around 200 kilometers radius around Delhi, there are 11 polluting thermal power plants. We have shifted all our polluting industries from coal to piped natural gas. All of this has happened in the last 10 years. So I talk about a lot of these. And in electric vehicles, Delhi is, by the way, we have the most, I would say, in terms of progressive electric vehicle policy, we give the highest subsidy. We have the highest density of charging stations across India. 1/3 of all charging stations in the country are in Delhi. And 12% of all new registrations in Delhi are EVs. But the rest of the Delhi NCR is not there. So I make the case that unless the entire region follows this plan, we are not going to see a huge improvement. लेकिन सवाल है कि क्या whatever we have done in Delhi, has that mattered at all? And there the answer is yes. And I cite all the CPCB data, the Central Pollution Control Board's data, to show that the 3-year average of PM 2.5 in Delhi has reduced by 45% in the last 10 years. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that Delhi's air is any more breathable. And what has especially happened is the first 9 to 10 months of the year, between Jan and October, the air quality has substantially improved. But November and December is when you see a lot of also geographical factors. You know, there's temperature inversion, there is very low wind speed. And that means that you really need to do more aggressive action across the region, which unfortunately we have not seen because, and I make the case, that the government of India has abandoned the issue of air pollution. Think about any country in the world which has 42 out of the 50 most polluting cities. The Prime Minister would have declared a war on pollution, would have allocated huge amounts. I give one number to show the seriousness at the national level. Beijing is, by the way, a case study in how a mega city has successfully fought air pollution by taking a regional approach. The Chinese government spent in 2017 17,000 crores fighting pollution in the larger Beijing area. Government of India came up with a NCAP, National Clean Air Program, to fight pollution in 2019. There are around 100 cities made part of it. Delhi was one of them. You know how much money was allocated for Delhi over 5 years under the NCAP? Take a guess, someone. 100 crores. 38 crores allocated by the government of India to fight Delhi's pollution. And then we ask ourselves, कि भाई pollution क्यों नहीं कम हो रहा? So yes, I believe Delhi government is, by the way, another decision that we have made. Delhi is the first city to have mandated all the commercial vehicles, the Olas, the Ubers, the Zomato, Swiggy, to be 100% electric by 2030. We passed a legislation. We passed a gazette notification. No other city in India has done this. But even today, if you shut down Delhi पे आप आज lockdown लगा दो. जैसे मैंने कहा, only 30% pollution is coming from Delhi. 400 AQI है, आपका 300 हो जाएगा. And I think it takes common sense that unless the rest of the country, and especially the northern states, Western UP, Haryana, and northern Rajasthan that comes under NCR, if we do not get serious about pollution, which will only happen if the government of India gets serious, the progress is going to be incremental. It's not the best, I would say, the satisfying answer, but this is the reality.
No, as I keep repeating, you are very, you make a very forceful case. You have mentioned, you've quoted a lot of, studies from there, but only it's reminded me of Congress President Sitaram Kesri. So he used to say that there are three kind of congressmen are there. There are backwards, there are forwards, and there are Harvards. So people from Harvard School, and say they lead Congress towards Har. So that's how he used to say Harvard. So some of this finding, one of the findings says that in April it works and in December it doesn't work.
Yeah, because of the geographical factors. So, I mean, that is data, right? I mean, you can say that I still do not believe in it or not, but the fact is there are a lot of researchers who have studied the odd even. And by the way, odd even is now no longer just our idea. It is part of the GRAP. The Graded Response Action Plan mandated by the Supreme Court says that when your air quality goes above 500, which is severe plus, the entire NCR region should be implementing odd even. How many times has Gurgaon implemented odd even? 0. So this shows, I'm telling, like Haryana, UP, tell me how many times have the chief ministers of these states come on television and spoke about pollution? What is their plan for pollution? Do you recall even one instance when Yogi Adityanath or, the Haryana CM, there are too many of them of late, but Naib Singh and before that Manohar Lal Khattar, never. Neither their chief ministers talk on pollution, neither, who's the Union Environment Minister? No, you know it. So people do not know. And that shows the seriousness that we have. And how, unfortunately, a matter like pollution, which is a health emergency, it's life and death for people, it just boils down to, political blame game. I mean, and I'm not saying that AAP has done everything. And as today we are at 2,000 electric buses. By the way, we have already made our plan to reach 8,000 electric buses in 1 year. So a lot of action is still underway. We'll keep doing it. But I believe this 45% improvement jo ho gayi hai, that is bulk of the work that the Delhi government has done. From here onwards, it will be incremental. If you really want to cut back pollution to maybe 10% of what it is now, we need a regional plan. And we need Government of India to come on the table, the Prime Minister. I talk about that like we have a GST committee of all the finance ministers. Why should we not have a war on pollution committee with all the environment ministers and the chief ministers? Is it not deserving of their time? कोई मिलता ही नहीं है. Every winter, our environment minister writes to the Union Environment Minister कि एक meeting बुलाइए so that all of us can take similar actions. Almost I think 3 या 4 साल में एक बार वो meeting बुलाते हैं Government of India. So that's the reality.
Yeah. Friend, before I open the floor open for all of you to ask questions to Jasmine Shah, just one last thing I want to ask you. It's also a political question. Why is Aam Aadmi Party such in a great hurry to dismantle whatever that India Alliance or India Bloc was worth? I mean, you just now we see that BJP is actually kind of praying and hoping for Congress to do well in Delhi in terms of both in terms of vote share as well as seats.
So why do you think the AAP is hurrying towards it and not the Congress? Because the beginning, and those who've been following the daily utterances of the political leaders in Delhi would know how did this all start. I think the India Alliance put up a very good front in the Lok Sabha elections, but immediately after that, and when the Delhi elections were approaching near, one of the first statements that was made by Mr. Ajay Makan, who called Arvind Kejriwal an anti-national. Within a few days, they went and filed FIRs against Arvind Kejriwal, submitted letters to the Lieutenant Governor. As on date, if you ask any Congress leader in Delhi, कि जो LG को इतने powers मिल गए हैं वो सही है, they said yes, absolutely. दिल्ली CM के पास इतने powers नहीं होने चाहिए, दिल्ली national capital है. So, irrespective, I think there is a huge difference between the national leadership of Congress and the Delhi leadership. The Delhi leadership somehow feels that, Delhi unki jagir thi. This is the land and AAP snatched it away, and whatever happens, doesn't matter if BJP strengthens or not, somehow we should see the downfall of AAP, and I genuinely feel it because I've seen it. And in the last 1 month itself, the only party that the Congress in Delhi has attacked is Aam Aadmi Party. We have seen instances of, Pravesh Verma, the former BJP MP, violating election rules day in and day out. He's distributing money, sarees, juta. Not one complaint filed by Congress against any BJP leader. In the last 1 month, they've only been targeting up, filing FIRs, calling them all kinds of names, and then we are to be blamed for, taking the India Alliance or weakening the India Alliance. And by the way, the rest of the India Alliance members have all declared that, if there's any party that can defeat BJP, it is Arvind Kejriwal, and Congress should not be undermining the party that can defeat BJP.
Yeah, friends, now the floor is open. Anybody who wishes to ask a question to him, make an observation, please introduce yourself. Ladies first.
Hi, Jasmine. Nice to hear you, and I look forward to reading your book. My name is Dr. Sareka. I'm the spokesperson for Haryana Aam Aadmi Party. I just want to ask, the Delhi model has been fabulous. We've been speaking about it, working on it, talking about it. Unfortunately, in Haryana elections, as you know, for the last 2 years, I've been working with AAP for the last 11 years. And Delhi, the Aam Aadmi Party, because Arvind was in jail, the Delhi model didn't rub in with Haryana. We got less than 1% vote share. What's your take on that?
I think the last 2 years, part of why this matter of the Delhi excise policy was blown up and why all the leaders were put in jail, the entire attempt there was to finish off Aam Aadmi Party. Ever since Aam Aadmi Party became a national party, it became the fastest growing national party, formed a government in Punjab. We have MLAs in Gujarat, Goa, now even in Jammu and Kashmir. BJP very clearly said that ab nahi to kabhi nahi, and they decided to put the entire leadership in jail. Now, I would look at the last 2 years and look at it with a sign of hope that here's AAP today, that despite the worst political vendetta that has played out against any political party, think of any political party or a national party whose top 4 leaders have been put in jail for months and in some cases for 1.5 to 2 years. And would that party stay intact? AAP is intact today so that we can thrive tomorrow. And I believe Haryana, it just came at a phase when, as you know, Arvind Kejriwal ji was in jail. He is the biggest face for the party. And being from Haryana, a lot of the campaign would have revolved around him. And unfortunately, he was in jail, he couldn't campaign. And that kind of took the momentum away from us. But that doesn't mean, I think AAP is an idea for the long term. And I would still remain very hopeful that we have seen the worst phase of AAP. We have survived. And I think that's good enough to celebrate for now and plan for the future. I also want to mention Mr. Arun Mehra is here. I look up to him, his writing, and he's also one of the people who's written very kindly about the book on the back.
And I have written honestly. I read his book before it came out completely, and he asked me my views on the book. I was thoroughly impressed. I've never seen such a clear exposition of benefits of an economic model. And I'm going to, you've been asking questions recently, and just the last few minutes, about who will we vote for. Will we vote for the Aam Aadmi Party? Firstly, most of us in Gurgaon don't have to face that question. And secondly, you did ask that in Gurgaon, would we vote for the Aam Aadmi Party? And perhaps we didn't. The point is not which political party we will vote for, but which economic ideology do we subscribe to. I think this is what, sitting in this place, I felt that this, where we live, people like us, and where we have our nice discussions and hopefully a good drink afterwards, we got to get serious about the world around ourselves. And I do feel, Jasmine, we talked about it, that it's the ideology of economic growth that has pervaded all our thinking of policy and politics. We talk about human development and doing something for the least privileged people as giving away something that is our entitlement. Mera tax, I should have the right, and I don't want to pay the tax also. So I do ask all our friends here, why do we not subscribe to this ideology that the poorest people come first? Their opinions must count. And so to the opening, as soon as you said the opening, Rasheed, then he's a great, sorry, I've been reading him longer than you because he's written longer than you, and great, you must read him too. But you asked the question as a journalist, and that's the right way to ask it. You said, you made the observation, that we journalists, we listen and tell stories, there's no substance, whereas the data is the substance. I'm sorry, I've learned, as getting into our planning commission, that our policy planners were just looking at data. They weren't listening to the people. The art of the politician is to listen and engage. And the art of a good journalist is to bring that voice up. And not to, please, try to prove cases through data, which we people, we scientific economists, or we think we are, think we know how to make policy which is good for everybody. It's good for us. It's not good for everybody. Let's get out of our culture of contentment with our situation and really feel the pain of people right here. You talk of slums, the people who come and work for us, how do they live? So thank you for challenging us again. And I would say, when you explained it today, my heart, as you can see, came out even more. And reading his book, you must read it. It's a very good book.
Thank you.
Thank
you for kind words, very enlightening. In fact, one of the things that perhaps at next venture you can take it up is about this, what Sir was hinting at. See, the political science or the kind of thing was there that Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau had propagated, that, you know, it's about greatest happiness to greatest number, that kind of social contract. Now, that is actually ending the political class, what it is making it to look, I, me, myself. When I say I, means me, my community, my faith, my sect, and that kind of thing is, in fact, in a way, democracy is coming under threat on that count also, that, you know, that greater welfare is not something that people really look forward to.
That's what's happened with this idea of vote bank politics, right? I mean, you have a very clear, I mean, and we're in Haryana, so you have to talk about Jat and non-Jat politics. I mean, the Haryana politics has all become who will corner Jat votes and who will corner non-Jat votes, and therefore one party is very clearly only after going one community. And when they come to power, they make sure that all the government jobs and everything, and that, by the way, it's happening in UP also. I mean, the way the Thakurs are privileged over everything else. So, and I make the case that, you know, the only kind of politics that can challenge this conventional caste or communal is a politics that can assure drastic improvement in the quality of life of the average people. You know, the reason why people choose between these vote banks and, you know, who's my caste and all is because उनको पता है कि कोई भी सरकार आ जाएगी, हमारी जिंदगी में कोई बदलाव नहीं आने वाला है. मेरे को जो सरकारी स्कूल है वही रहेगा. 50 साल पहले भी वही था, आज भी यही है. अस्पताल का कुछ नहीं होने वाला है. बिजली जाने वाली है. बिजली के दाम बढ़ने वाले हैं. So at least I'll have my caste person, so he'll give me something more than what others are. And when you have a government and can say that no, for everyone, and especially in the middle and the lower classes, and I say not just lower but also the middle classes, because I believe the middle classes are the worst off. उनको तो कोई भी कुछ नहीं देता. So somewhere I feel this is the only kind of politics that can challenge the conventional politics.
So you were asking? Yeah, you were asking. Yeah.
So my name is Sanjana, and I've spent a large part of my professional life working in the development sector. This has been a very interesting conversation for me. and I've gained a lot. A simple question. What is the Aam Aadmi Party doing about making Delhi a safer space for women?
Can I request one thing? We'll take 2 or 3 questions.
Yeah,
Let's take 3 questions and then I'll respond one by one.
Yeah.
My name is Kamal Malhotra. I'm a senior fellow at Boston University, retired from the United Nations as its head in a number of countries. My question, firstly, I have a problem with the term model. I think it's a problematic term. And certainly, from my perspective, Gujarat is nothing close to a model for all the reasons you've stated. There's been a lot published about that. But the real close to a model in India is really Kerala. And I'm surprised that it's never referenced. From a human development point of view, which is quite different from a human capital approach, which is a much more restricted approach, it's really only Kerala that has sustained very high human development index, equivalent to the Scandinavian countries, for a considerable period of time. I've often argued that its problem is that it's been part of India, because that's why industry did not locate there. So it is not an economic model, but it is certainly in human development terms. So what has the Aam Aadmi Party learnt from the Kerala experience? And secondly, in terms of the freebie aspect, which is considerable, and now in the political debate, it's only about freebies, and you don't highlight the more developmental aspects that you referred to in the political debate. It's all about who can give 2,000 or 2,500. That's really not a development discussion at all. And in terms of the sustainability of the Mohalla, I'm told that they're running out of drugs. There's a fiscal space problem now, which has accumulated over the last 10 years. Can you say a little more about that?
Sure. We'll take one more and then I'll...
Hi, Jasmine. It's Mitali. I'm the founder of a think tank called Nikor Associates. We're an independent youth-led think tank, and I think we probably met on some TV debates or in life, I don't know. So I think given that the question on women's safety, which I'm also very interested in, so looking forward to hear your answer on that. But I think the bigger question to relate with freebies is around not the bottom line of where the expenditure is going, but the top line of how the revenue is being generated. Because nobody will have a problem with you giving out freebies for education, health, or any other social expenditure if we have the fiscal space for it. So what is the current situation when it comes to governance of Delhi, the Delhi government actually being able to raise revenues? And what are the different mechanisms that you may have already tried to increase revenues? Because we advise a lot of states to raise revenues through very innovative mechanisms like property taxation revenues and land revenue capture. But that's very difficult in Delhi. So I think it would be really good to understand that from a challenges point of view.
Sure. So let me start with the question on women's safety. I think many of you know that the matter of law and order, by the way, I write initially that I would believe one of the biggest issues in the national capital is that of safety. And especially women's safety. Because Delhi is a partial state, the entire matter of law and order comes under the central government. However, there are powers that even the state government has. And on that front, there are a few initiatives that we have taken, and I'll share that. Number one is a lot of the infrastructure fixes. You know, the issue of dark spots was a huge one in Delhi. The number of street lights, I believe it's around 2 or 3 lakhs additional street lights that have been installed in Delhi in the last 10 years. And we have worked actually with one of the organizations, Safety Pin, to do a survey and figure out where are the dark spots and to make sure that they are systematically addressed. I'll give you a small example of a governance. I talk about some of the innovations that we have done. So one of the problems, dark spots is also a lot in unauthorized colonies or far-flung areas where बिजली के खंबे नहीं है. The answer was कि अच्छा इसको खंबे लगाने तो 3 महीने का project होगा, बड़ा खर्चा होगा. Why? Because you have to draw a line from somewhere. We came up with a scheme which is that any household, उसके ही बिजली meter से you draw a line and put the power, the street light, and we figured with the power distribution company कि जितना उसका monthly का consumption है वो minus हो जाएगा आपके bill से. So rather than drawing a line from the center, I mean that was how we like literally I think this scheme was introduced in 2018 or 19. 2 या 3 साल के अंदर huge number of dark spots were addressed. Number 2, Delhi has the highest density of CCTV cameras today in the entire world. I think Forbes came out with a comparison, and that again, all of them were sort of installed. Though Delhi police was typically installing CCTVs before our government has installed around 4 lakh CCTVs across Delhi, and the feed is there with Delhi police. So many times they are able to find it. The third is, I would say, the free bus rides for women is also in that sense creating a safe space for women. When there's safety in numbers, as they say it. And because you have, what has happened by the free bus ride scheme earlier in 2019, we introduced it. Of the total bus commuters in Delhi, only 25% were women. Today, that number has reached 50%. Half, that number has doubled. That space, bus rides has generally become, you see a lot of women there. But we introduced for the first time this bus marshal scheme. Now, we deployed civil defense personnel. For the first time, any government deployed one khaki vardi wala inside each bus. There are 2 shifts in the buses, morning to night. And each bus, we had bus marshal. At its peak, there were 13,000 bus marshals that were there in Delhi buses. And the popular feedback was that women felt a lot safer when they knew that if at all there was an issue, they could rely on somebody. And there are many anecdotal examples of how bus marshals have intervened. I think part of, whoever has been following Delhi politics knows that even bus marshal has been shot down by the LG, and there is politics going on there. But we are hoping that it will be revived soon. So whatever limited powers are there under Delhi government, we have used them, and we remain committed to. If there are ideas, if you feel, and we, as I said, we work with Safety Pin, we work with other organizations. If there are things that we can do which are in our domain, we cannot intervene in law and order. And by the way, I must tell you this horrific statistic when I was researching for my book. The number of rape incidents in Delhi have doubled since the Nirbhaya incident, since 2012. And the conviction rate in crimes against women in Delhi is 3%, amongst the lowest in the world. So, and we never, somehow, and obviously it's the Home Minister and Amit Shah who's responsible for law and order in Delhi, but that never becomes a metric by which you are judging or electing the Home Minister. And that is why the last thing, or the last few paras I devote in my book is actually the long-term fix to Delhi, which is to make it, barring the central NDMC area where the Lutyens Delhi lives, make the rest of it as a full state. Not because some government can have more power or the AAP can have more power, but because you can hold the CM accountable for each and everything, including women's safety.
Do you have any plans of leveraging your 2 strong properties, education and Mohalla clinics to...
So, to address this issue. So, very interestingly, and I'll quickly answer the others also because, and we can talk more about it later. We introduced there's a book, a very beautiful book written by Manish Sisodia ji called Shiksha, My Experiments as an Education Minister. And he talks about his journey. And he says that the role of we have diminished the role of our education system to only make employable. I mean, the fact that the government of India called Ministry of Human Resource Development, they're nothing but human resources and not human beings in themselves. So he spoke about that, and he says that the job of the education minister should not just be teaching them grammar and mathematics, but to make better human beings with the right kind of value system. And he says that I envision a state where if, let's say, the mayor of a city or the chief minister of a state sees a issue on law and order and women's safety, then you order your police chief to address it within the next 1 month, but you also give orders to your education minister that do something at your curriculum level so that in the next 5 years or next 10 years, the children who are coming out are far more sensitive about these issues. That is the reason today Delhi government, I talk about the Delhi education model. Besides providing quality education to each child, one of our foremost goals is to create better human beings, to influence that there are better human beings coming out of the government school system. And that's the reason we have today something called the happiness curriculum. The entire design of the happiness curriculum is to prepare far more sensitive and inherently happy human beings. I mean, the kind of backgrounds these children come from in government schools, very stressful background. Probably they see their parents indulging in some behaviors and let's say patriarchal behaviors, and they feel that that's appropriate. But who will correct it? If not the school, who are the other touch point the child has? And the government's never felt ki hamara kaam hai ye sikhana. And happiness curriculum has been a fantastic success. We've had the US First Lady Melania Trump come to India and sit in a happiness class. We have started the entrepreneurship curriculum. So many curriculum interventions in that direction. I'm going to now answer your question on the freebies and the Kerala model. So you are right. I would say, Kerala, the uniqueness of the Kerala model is that despite stellar economic performance, it managed to have a fabulous record on human development indices. And that has happened, I would say it's almost a social movement that, and irrespective of the party in power, the governments consistently kept prioritizing health and education. So my purpose was never to disown or criticize. Part of it was I also had to manage the scope of the book. It already started running into 300 pages and my editors were like, aur lambi hogi to aur kam log padhenge. Gujarat model I chose to write because I think most of the people in development sector know the reality of, where the Gujarat model falls short. But I ask you that go out and talk to 10 people, ordinary people who are not from academia or development sector. They still feel Gujarat model is fantastic. And that's the way it has been sold to much of, and if you, even the debates in political debates that we talk about, that's how Gujarat model still gets talked about. So I don't want to devalue Kerala model. I think there's a lot that Kerala can learn, but it also comes from a very different historical and cultural background. The reason why Delhi model is distinct is, I believe it's far more hopeful story that Delhi did not do this क्योंकि दिल्ली का कोई cultural बदलाव आ गया या कोई societal movement आया. A party coming from nowhere, within 10 years, out of sheer political will and prioritizing budgets in the right departments, has managed to bring about this change. And I think that is what is distinct about the Delhi model. You talk about political debates. Unfortunately, neither I or parties as small as mine determine the line of the political debate. I would love if the entire Noida media would talk about सब लोग बताओ कि दिल्ली के एजुकेशन सिस्टम के लिए आपका क्या विजन है. Not one debate. You will see hundreds of debates. But the moment, obviously, as I say, this is one thing that is more sellable and somehow, and it just shows the quality of our political discussion that goes on national media. And that is why I believe discussions and conversations like this and maybe podcasts are far better medium to understand what different political parties and leaders genuinely think. I'm going to,
I think we're running out of time, but last two questions.
No, I'll very just in 1 minute I'll answer your. So how did we, and I'm not sure if you caught what I said earlier, that we did create the fiscal space, right? We managed to increase our annual budget increase by around 5,000 crores. And there's an entire chapter written about it, how we plugged leakages in the tax collection system, how we created some kind of trust and confidence amongst the market committees of Delhi. Hota kya tha ki tax inspectors would go and start demanding money. The finance minister of Delhi at that time, Manish Sisodia, was on a WhatsApp group with all market committees. And I in fact talk about one of the anecdote that before Diwali, one of those committees started complaining कि हमारे यहाँ tax inspector आ रहा है और उगवाई कर रहा है. And immediately that photo and information reached the finance minister. The next day he suspended the entire inspection, like the entire GST inspection team of Delhi. So a lot of small, not rocket science, but instilling faith and making your tax collection system robust. Unfortunately, we do not have property tax comes under MCD, value capture, land doesn't come against. So again, I believe that the fact that हमारे पास इतने restricted powers हैं और फिर भी इतना काम हुआ है, means that there's no reason other states should not be doing it, or voters in other states should not be demanding at least this much in their states.
Yeah, so I think we're coming to end of it. Just two questions, last two questions. Yeah. Right, gentleman at the back. Yeah.
Hi, yes, this is Rajesh. Congratulations on the book. So, interestingly, like Delhi model, has a lot of focus on education and the pollution which we are having, right? Sir has spoken about Kerala model, but recently, like the freebies which are coming in the politics, right? I think that Tamil Nadu, right, which has mastered art of giving the freebie long back, because we all knew what freebie is, right? They have a very good idea around how to deploy the human capital. They probably contribute a double digit of the GDP in the manufacturing sector, right? So why the Tamil Nadu model, right, is not a better model? If you're talking about the model, sir.
Kerala के बाद Tamil Nadu also, yes.
And AAP has a government in Punjab,
Yeah.
which needs like lot of manufacturing inflows, right? So moving aside from the Delhi thing, the AAP party model which works in the Punjab, what will it take for you guys to have a full-blown model of, whatever you want to implement in Punjab,
Got it.
maybe Tamil Nadu or maybe hash of Tamil Nadu and Delhi?
Okay. Sudhir, you had a question? Yeah.
Now 10 years of Aam Aadmi Party and quite successful 10 years. I think government in 2 states, MLAs in 6 states,
It's a national party, yeah.
national parties, and 2 corporations, and 13 MPs, 3 in Rajya Sabha, 3 in Lok Sabha, and 10 in Rajya Sabha. Where do we go from here? And what can we do this in
Okay.
to contribute very well?
Okay. Shall I just respond?
Yeah, yes, just please.
No, so good question. See, the Delhi model is not just the AAP model, because the AAP model will evolve as we face different scenarios in different states. We did not have to face, a huge industrial. Delhi's economy, by the way, is 85% services, tertiary sector. We don't have a huge manufacturing sector. So, like I said, in the case of, and in fact, Sir mentioned, Kamalji mentioned Kerala, and Tamil Nadu also. I mean, I've studied in Tamil Nadu. I've lived there for many years. So Tamil Nadu also has many good things under its belt. And again, there's a long history of governments, irrespective of. By the way, the freebies of Tamil Nadu I don't always agree with, which is television and radio. Amongst other things, and I make a case that in Delhi we have tried to give essential, जो हम बोलते हैं मूलभूत सुविधाएं, something that every family needs to live a life of dignity, water, electricity, things like that. But Delhi has Tamil Nadu has a great example in industrial policy where they focus on small and medium enterprises, by the way, which is drastically opposite what Gujarat does, which is give to large, big businesses. So there's a lot to learn, and I'm sure when the story of the Punjab model is written, and I hope I'm not the one to write it, because there's too many sleepless nights to put this together, there'll be a lot more that we will learn. But at least there is faith that we have got a few things right. We have a starting point. AAP today, when it goes and campaigns anywhere, and I think I'll connect to Sudhi's question, that I think the biggest thing going for AAP is credibility. Right? Today, we are the only political party, irrespective of any state or any election we fight, we say that हमें वोट दो क्योंकि हम आपके स्कूल ठीक कर देंगे, हम आपके अस्पताल ठीक कर देंगे, हम बिजली के दाम कम कर देंगे. Other political parties never campaign, be it Congress or BJP. This is never, I mean, BJP announced their manifesto just a couple of days back. There was no, government healthcare system को reform करना है या फिर education system को ठीक करना है. These are never their narrative. And even if they say it, why should people believe them? Show us one state since independence where they have transformed the government education and the healthcare system. AAP has done this, not just on these matters, I said on electricity, water. A lot of these things we have figured out. That is our starting point. And I would say, where does AAP grow from here? I think part of it, AAP has been through its worst phase now, and I'm very glad that where we are. I think the first challenge is the upcoming Delhi elections. And after that, you go back. I believe part of it is that AAP doesn't need to go everywhere, maybe through books like these or maybe through other formats. There's no reason why other governments cannot do this. And I believe media, civil society, and ordinary citizens will have to start demanding far more of our governments. And at least hold Delhi model as an example कि देखो ये सरकार कर रही है. But I do believe that, India is such a huge nation that I cannot say how soon and how quickly will AAP grow. But I do believe that people are realizing and recognizing that the government in Delhi is doing something fundamentally different, and probably we should give a chance to them. So all of you here, not support a political party, but as Mr. Mehra said, an economic ideology that seems to be doing or giving better outcomes for all people, for the economy and for the people in the middle and lower classes, and do it for the love of the country. Because if this does not get you to the destination of a developed India, I mean, there's nothing else will. Frankly, we keep talking about Viksit Bharat, and I say in this book that the path that we have taken right now, इसके हवाले 2047 छोड़ दीजिए, 2147 में भी हम डेवलप्ड नेशन नहीं बनने वाले, unless we start prioritizing things like health, education and fundamental infrastructure.
Very nice. You see, we do not know what will happen on 8th of February, but the one thing is very clear that there are two things that I had thought that will not happen. I would not see that the BJP complaining about somebody trying to court and attract the majority community. I know you may not like this compliment from the BJP, and that the BJP counting on the Congress to beat up. So it's like me like there's a Arab proverb, no, that me and my brother against my cousin, me and my cousin against a stranger. So Kejriwal being a stranger in sort of, in the political minefield is a welcoming thing. And if Aam Aadmi continues to trend, then we are going to see, so to say, a lot of action and some positive things are going to happen. People in democracy need to have an alternative. With this, friends, we would end this conversation and with the request that have a look at the book. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
And I'll be available in case you want copies signed. I'll be available for a few more minutes. Thank you very much.